Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, and welcome to day 288 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. Oh, you are going to feel for Sister Faustina today. She is suffering greatly, and the other sisters around her are not being very compassionate or being very understanding. They're just doing and saying a lot of things that would be terribly hurtful. And so you're definitely going to, feel a lot of compassion for her, for what she's going through, for how much she's suffering. It sounds terrible, absolutely terrible. I don't know all the ins and outs of how tuberculosis goes, but it doesn't sound like a disease I would ever want anyone to really have. So today we're going to be talking about how we are not privy to everything that is going on in someone's life, and a lot of times we just really need to realize that there may be inner turmoil going on with somebody that we can't see, and that might explain why they're acting a certain way. So we'll be reading from Notebook 5, numbers 1428 through 1432. For a month now, I have been feeling worse. Every time I cough, I feel my lungs disintegrating. It sometimes happens that I feel the complete decay of my own corpse. It is hard to express how great a suffering this is. Although I fully agree to this with my will, it is nevertheless a great suffering for nature, greater than wearing a hair shirt or a flagellation to the point of blood. I have felt it especially when I was going to the refectory. It took great effort for me to eat anything because food made me sick. I also started at this time to suffer from pains in my intestines. All highly seasoned dishes caused me such immense pain that I spent many nights writhing in pain and in tears for the sake of sinners. However, I asked my confessor what to do, whether I should continue to suffer this for the sake of sinners or ask the superiors for an exception by way of milder food. He decided that I should ask the superiors for milder food. And thus I followed his directions, seeing that this humiliation was more pleasing to God. One day I began to doubt as to how it was possible to feel this continual decaying of the body and at the same time be able to walk and work. Perhaps this was some kind of an illusion. Yet it cannot be an illusion because it causes me such terrible pains. As I was thinking about this, one of the sisters came to converse with me. After a minute or two, she made a terribly wiry face and said, "Sister, I smell a corpse here as though it were decaying. Oh, how dreadful it is." I said to her, "Do not be frightened, sister. That smell of a corpse comes from me." She was very surprised and said she could not stand it any longer. After she had gone, I understood that God had allowed her to sense this so that I would have no doubt but that he was no less than miraculously keeping the knowledge of this suffering from the whole community. Oh, my Jesus, only you know the full depth of this sacrifice. Nevertheless, when in the refectory, I still had to bear being the object of the frequent suspicion that I was being fussy about my food. At such times, as always, I hasten to the tabernacle and bow before the ciborium, and there draw strength to accept God's will. That which I have written is not yet everything. Today, during confession, breaking the wafer with me spiritually, he gave me the following wishes. Be as faithful as you can to the grace of God. Secondly, beg God's mercy for yourself and for the whole world, because we are all in great need of God's mercy. My high school English teacher for my junior and senior years was fantastic. She is one of the best teachers I ever had. She was no nonsense, and she gave a lot of work, and she was very strict and, just asked a lot of us. But I really loved her class. It was challenging, it was thought-provoking, and it was just very interesting. I really loved going to class every day because you never knew what you were going to do in her class. One day she gave us this kind of brain assignment. She gave us a scenario that would normally kind of make people wonder and make you assume certain things. And then we had to sit and think of different reasons why that situation may be the way it was. So I'll give you an example. Back in the day when people actually used to go to banks and pull up to the teller, aisles, people would come and there would usually be like 3 or 4 stalls that you could pull up into. Well, she gave us the scenario that imagine you pull up to a bank and there's 3 stalls. One of them has 1 car in it. One of them has no cars in it. One of them has 3 cars in it. And as you pull up, you say to yourself, why in the world is the person in the 3rd stall at the very end not pulling in to the one with nobody in it? Why in the world wouldn't they do that? And so you think to yourself, well, my lucky day, I'm pulling in. And of course you do. But you sit there and you assume, man, this person is stupid or something like that. Now, back in the day when I was in high school, there was no such thing as a cell phone. So one of the options for why that person was sitting in the line would not have been staring at their cell phones, though that would probably be one I would pick today. But what she made us do was come up with different reasons why the person in the 3rd stall in the back did not pull into the one without anybody in it. Because she said, our assumption is that they're just stupid or they're not paying attention to the world. And she was right. Most people would make that assumption and probably mutter under their breath, oh my gosh, they're so stupid. So anyway, we sat there and we thought about all these different scenarios and possibilities. And it was amazing how many scenarios we all came up with as a class. And scenarios that actually were, made sense and were not just ridiculous. It was incredible. And it was such a eye-opening experience for me. And it was such a good lesson in understanding that we don't always know what's going on with people. And oftentimes the very first thing that we assume is the incorrect choice. Not always, but a lot of times. So, if somebody is acting very agitated or irritated, a lot of times we just assume, man, they are just grumpy. They're just a negative, horrible person. But we oftentimes don't know what has been going on in their lives. Maybe their spouse just left them. Maybe they just got diagnosed with cancer. Maybe they just got fired from their job. Who knows? So looking today here at Sister Faustina with her sickness, we are seeing what's going on with her because she's telling us and we're reading her words. And so we know how much she's suffering. Gosh, I can't even imagine where she talks about feeling her lungs disintegrating and that she can feel like the decay of her corpse. I know tuberculosis has to do with the lungs, and I can only imagine what that must feel like. But she's not feeling good. And she is feeling as if she's just dying. She's just disintegrating, turning back into ash. And yet she's still trying to carry on. She even says, I don't even know how I keep going. I don't know how I'm working. I don't know how I'm walking, feeling this way. But she's doing it. And so one of the things that's really starting to bother her now is spicy food or food that is highly seasoned. And she was just going to take it. She was like, I'll just offer up this terrible pain for sinners. And then she talks to her confessor and she's like, is there any way I could ask for milder food? And you almost are relieved when he says, yes, you can ask for milder food. And she sees it as a humiliation because she's asking to take on less suffering. Whereas I'm sitting here reading this like, oh, thank goodness. Thank you, confessor. The poor woman. Give her a little bit of a break, which he does. So then she has this interaction with another sister, and this other sister can smell something terrible, like a rotting, decaying corpse. And Sister Faustina has to say, yeah, it's me. And this other sister doesn't even comfort her at all. I know that's a terrible smell, but she's just like, I got to get out of here. I can't stand here. And then at dinner, she's having people whisper behind her back and gossiping about, oh, she's just being fussy about her food when they don't understand what's really going on inside of her. This, heavily spiced food is causing her immense pain, and she's not just being picky, she's really hurting, and they just assume the worst of her, which is, I think something that we all tend to do. So the reason why I brought up my old English teacher is because I think it's a great lesson for us all to maybe just take a few minutes whenever we encounter somebody who's either annoying us, making us angry, making us want to gossip about them, or we just don't understand what they're doing, to maybe just take a moment and kind of brainstorm about what may be going on in their lives. We may not be right, but just to kind of expand our minds to say, honestly, I don't know what this person is going through. And if you're close enough to them, maybe ask them, you seem kind of irritable today. Is there anything going on? They may not want to tell you, but at least you offer a willing ear to them, that they might tell you what's going on so they can get it off their chest. But the main thing is just realizing and understanding that, again, we don't always know the ins and outs of people's lives and why they're behaving a certain way. And so it could just be as simple as, taking some time to think of some different scenarios about why they might be acting that way. And that might help us to be a little more understanding and not assume the worst in them. So that is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 289. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.